Well, hi everybody, and welcome to Short Shifts this week. Hope you're enjoying our processes. We have some new ideas for you every week, and we want you to think through those ideas. We want you to put them into the short shift sort of learning loop, right? You want to make sure that you're saying, yeah, I'm good at this, or I'm not so good at this. I want to improve in this area. And then you really want to journal. And as much as you can, fire ideas into that journal, especially around how will you iterate, how will you actually apply the stuff that we're firing out. Our goal is to throw some mud on the wall and see what sticks for you, and it'll be different every person every week. All right, this week I want to share a quick story with you, and we're going to come back halfway and we'll talk about this. But this is a fun story from my career. I think you're going to like it. And
you don't need to know hockey to love what we do here today again. But I am so old. Some of you need to Google 1978. That was my first year in the NHL. And the first face-off I ever took was against somebody called Stan Mikita. And he was one of the great face-off men in the NHL at the time, and he played for Chicago. Right at the end of the game, I was on the bench, and my coach, Dan Belisle, tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, "Go get the face-off, kid." Wow. He made my confidence. Can you imagine in my first game, he's relying on me to go get that face-off? I look up, it's Stan Mikita, and I tie up his stick, and we tie the face-off, and we tie the game. Okay? All went well. I met Dan Belisle, my old coach, about 20 years later, up in Detroit, and he was scouting for Detroit, and I met him up I was broadcasting at the time. I met him up in the stands. I said, "Danny, how are you? Good to see you, buddy." I said, "Danny, do you remember my first game when you tapped me on the shoulder and you put me out on the ice and you had me win the face-off?" And he said, "I sure do, Ryan. I sure do." He said, "I made a mistake." I'm going, "What do you mean you made a mistake? I tied the face-off. We tied the game." He said, No, it wasn't you." He said, when I put you, a 21-year-old player, out on the ice to take that face-off, he said, "I'd do that again." He said, "But when I did that, I took off a 36-year-old Guy Chiron." And he said, "When I made your confidence, I ruined his." Think about this, leaders. People are complex, aren't they? Here's a coach 20 years later, still thinking about the moves that he made.
So I want you to think about that. We all look back, and we have options when we look back, don't we? I mean, the idea is that we can actually move, those options as we look back at maybe mistakes in our life, or we look back at learning opportunities in our life. We can see those through sort of two lenses, right? Okay, what should I avoid? And certainly psychology talks a lot about we're going to move away from things, or we're going to move towards things, right? We're going to avoid, or we're going to move, in a direction towards that we want more of. Okay. So this idea is a powerful one as we look back. So Dan Belisle, my old coach, was looking back at what he sensed was a mistake. He would have done that differently, right? But at that point, he had no output. He couldn't actually talk about, okay, I'm coaching now, so I'm going to do it differently now. He was just looking back at what he felt was a mistake, and he had no way to sort of correct it. He was just thinking about it. So this idea is, do we, when we look back at things that we maybe are disappointed in, do we have an output? Do we have a place to go? And here's where I'm trying to take us. Can we move our future negative thinking and our future negative focus, like, I probably should have done that differently, into what we call a future positive lens? So can we move it into a learning opportunity, right? When we look back, can we look to get better? Or when we look back, do we want to just sort of live there? Right? Do we ruminate in that area and say, boy, and personalize it? I'm really disappointed with what I did there, so I'm disappointing me, and I'm a disappointed person. That's not what we want to do. We want to make sure that we're moving towards something that gives us the opportunity to change, to get better, right? That's a great story of an opportunity as you look back into past negatives to actually see, can you iterate the information that you get and bring something good out of it? Just have a quick look at this. This is the beach down in White Rock, British Columbia, where Jennifer and I walk every day. And gee, it's just a beautiful beach. And you know what? The reason I captured this is see the waves coming in. It really hit me. So waves come in and waves go out. Waves come in, water goes out. Waves come in, water goes out. Right? That's the natural theme as you look at the ocean. But you know the larger theme. So we're going to have little times where we're getting good at things, we're not getting good at things, right? And then we're going to have some opportunity. The waves are going to come in. I'll give you an example. So we've been working on our diet a little bit, and we've been working exercise and losing some weight. What's interesting is I tend to lose some weight, and then I gain some of it back. Then I tend to lose a little more, and I gain a little bit back, and then I go a little bit more. It's like the waves. And here's what I want to say in this short shift. Are we moving towards or are we moving away? So in general, is the tide coming in? Waves are going to go back and forth, but is the tide coming towards the goals that we have? Or are we avoiding things in our life, right? I'm not going to do that again. I'm not going to do that again. So I really want to challenge you as you look at parts of your week, right? Yeah, the little wave back and forth, that's normal, right? Yeah, getting better, not so good, getting better, not so good. That's it's sort of the iteration of how we get better. But in general, is the tide coming in? Are we moving towards the goals and the direction and we're going to call it the future self that we desire? Or is the tide going out? And are we avoiding things? Are we moving away from things? So think about that this week, right? As you sort of understand this concept of looking back as a way to go forward. Have a great week, everybody.